Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Roosevelt Room. Dr. Carter, Stephanie, William Carter. Where's William? Hey, man. How are you? Welcome. Welcome, Bill. And daughter Ava couldn't be present today, but Deputy Secretary Work, who has been running things and has been a great asset to the department, and General Marty Dempsey, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, as well as Admiral James Winnefeld, who is the Vice Chairman, and members of the Carter transition team. I said as I walked into ASH, if anyone is made for this job, if there's a job description that fit a person, this is the guy that fits the job description. It's kind of fitting that we're here in the Roosevelt Room, a lot of Renaissance men from Teddy to Franklin, and that you get sworn in this room, Ash. You're a scholar, a genuine scholar of strategic military affairs and nuclear weapons policy, a profoundly capable manager demonstrated time and again with the universal respect and affection of the people you work with, reflected in a near unanimous vote in the United States Senate. We got to talk more. I tell you what, there used to be the good old days, and I'm glad you got us back in harness, got the Senate back in harness here. And a physicist is a genuine expert on the acquisition and technical capabilities that are going to help guarantee the United States military is second to none in the world. And this man has a driving intellectual force behind all that he does and all this administration has been doing, strengthening our nation's cyber capabilities, improving the way the Pentagon does business, and implementing the Asian-Pacific rebalance, including deepening defense cooperation with India. Even when you were allegedly gone, we never let you go. I don't know how many times I was on the phone with you for your advice after you had, quote, left. The president didn't like it when you weren't here, Ash. It made it harder for me. I'm glad you're back. And perhaps the most important of all, you've been a fighter like the men in uniform here today and the women in uniform. You've been a fighter for the women and men who serve in uniform. Our incoming Secretary of Defense, like his predecessor, understands that while this country has many obligations, it only has one truly sacred obligation. We have many obligations, but only one truly sacred obligation, and that's to equip and protect those who we send to war and care for their families while they're there and them and their families when they come home. Years ago, when we learned that what improvised explosive devices were, IEDs, it's hard to believe that 15 years ago, people weren't talking about. We didn't even know what IEDs were. It was not part of the vocabulary. They were responsible for upwards of 60% of the deaths and injuries to our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And Ash Carter was the guy who leapt into action to honor that sacred obligation of taking care of our troops. He was then Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics, and then as Deputy Secretary, he worked like the devil to get our troops mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles, so-called MRAPs. And they've saved lives and limbs in countless numbers for American women and men. I can remember, Ash, I read your report and then spoke at the time on the floor of the Senate with the Commandant of the Marine Corps. We had a pretty universal opposition to spending the money. At the time, as you remember, even some division within the Defense Department of whether we should spend the money. That was $23 billion we were trying to get that year to begin to build these MRAPs. And it's faced not only bureaucratic opposition, but there was opposition on the floor of the United States Senate. And I had the great privilege of leading the effort to get this money put in the budget. And I remember before we went into the debate, going around quoting you and referencing your report And then in the middle of the debate, when I was told by Democrats and Republicans, leaders in the House, in the Senate Armed Services Committee, that this was not a priority for the United States military, I called up then the Commandant of the Marine Corps. I left the floor. I suggested the absence of the quorum, left the floor, and went back in the cloakroom. And he referenced your report as well and said he believed, I'm paraphrasing, his highest moral obligation he thought existed was to get these MRAPs built. And so guess what? We did. But then the argument became, well, are we building too many? And I remember saying on the floor, Ash, that that's a little like Franklin Roosevelt saying on D-Day, have we built too many landing craft? Because we're not going to be able to use them after this. We're not going to need them very much. That was the argument at the time. We shouldn't build this many because we're not going to need them. We're not going to need them, and why waste the money? Well, in the end, we sent more than 24,000 MRAPs to Iraq and Afghanistan, and Ash, your pioneering work is what saved thousands of lives and limbs in the process. You brought, and I remember my next trip to Afghanistan after this, to Iraq. I was out in Fallujah, and the battle had been won, and there was a group they wanted to show me. There was a meeting going on, and they wanted to show me an MRAP that had just been blown up, and two young sergeants in a Humvee, up-armored Humvee, got out of their vehicles and showed me how this one MRAP was blown up, and I forget how many pounds of explosives, but it blew the entire MRAP up higher than a telephone pole, brought down the wires. But when they all survived, they had all of the soldiers there survive because the internal portion of the vehicle was preserved. And so if you did nothing else in your career, that's a pretty important thing to have done. But this is just one example of the way he cares for the troops. He also led the effort to develop, and this is not a joke, like an advertisement, protective undergarments, earning him not only a pair of signed bulletproof underwear, but enduring gratitude for our wife fighters whose bodies were broken were unbroken, I should say, because of what he rushed into the field. Ash and Stephanie also, my deceased wife used to say, you want to measure a man or a woman, look at what they do if no one was looking. If no one was looking. Almost every Saturday when no one was looking, Ash and Stephanie were out at Walter Reed. No cameras, no publicity, no advance. They just became regulars. They got to know the families of those women and men at Reed. They looked after their children. They saw these warriors healed, and they formed lasting bonds with hundreds upon hundreds of these young women and men. That's what endeared me most to you, Ash, and you too, Stephanie. And being Ash Carter, he just didn't do these things. He wrote eloquently about the lessons of his experience so the next time we could do a lot better. In other words, Ash Carter is a thinker and a doer. He gets things done. He's famous for holding meetings, I'm told, walking briskly down the hallways of the Pentagon with his aides struggling to scribble and jog simultaneously. I understand they're not necessarily looking forward to that again. They hope you stay in that bigger office and don't wander as much. And woe to the person who runs into Ash Carter in one of those walks after having not followed through on an assignment. My guess is there's probably staffers over there right now, Ash, thinking of the things they told you they would do just prior to you having left. Now you're coming back and going, oh my God, where's that memo? Did I get it all done? You know, many tough missions, as you know, Ash, as well as any of the men and women in here, lie ahead, from the fight against ISIL to strengthening NATO to the Asia-Pacific rebalance to maintaining our technological edge to the continuous efforts to make the most out of every dollar we invest in defense. And as you know now, after your vote, not only are the President and I and the chiefs, but the United States Senate is counting on you to keep holding yourself and all in your charge to the highest possible standards that required for our national security and our ideals. And as never to stop demanding and delivering the best for the men and women in uniform. And Dr. Carter, as you take the leadership of this greatest military in the history of mankind, that is not hyperbole, that is an absolute fact in all of human history. There has never been a military as capable as this. You do so with confidence of everyone in your building, confidence of the United States Senate, confidence of President Obama and me, and so many other people who admire your work. So God bless your mission, old buddy, and may God protect our troops. Now I'm going to, with your permission, administer the oath. Then you and I are going to have to sign a few documents here to make it official. Then I'm going to turn it over to you. But if, Stephanie, you walk up here and you put your left hand in the Bible and raise your right and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Ashton Carter,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
on which I'm about to enter.
on which I'm about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Secretary, thank you for doing this. Now, you and I have to sign this, Ash, and then the podium is yours. Where we go, make sure I get the sign in the right place. There you go, sign there. Get out of your way.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think you know how much it means to me to have you swear me in today, and I thank you. And for me, this is the highest honor to be the 25th Secretary of Defense. I'm grateful to the President and the Vice President for your trust and confidence, and to the U.S. Senate as well for their trust and confidence. I've got a lot of thanks to give out here. First and foremost to my perfect wife, Stephanie, my wonderful son, Will, and my daughter, Ava, already mentioned. A number of folks who were part of my transition team and helped me get where I am, and without whom I would not be where I am. And I won't name each and every one of you, but I'm looking at you, and I appreciate it. It was a time when I really needed help, and I got help from you all. And to the team I'm about to join, my wonderful deputy, Bob Work, our fantastic chairman, Marty Dempsey, vice, Sandy Winnefeld, I've known for a long time, worked with you before. It's wonderful to rejoin the team with you. And I have some special friends here, Deputy Secretary of Energy Liz Sherwood. I'm very grateful, Liz, that you would come today and take your time to be with me. And all the rest of my team to be, Eric, Ron, thank you all very much for being here. I'm honored to rejoin the men and women of the Defense Department in what is the highest calling, which is the defense of our country. Starting today, I want to make 3 commitments to them and to the country and to the President and to the Vice President and my fellow citizens. The first is to help our President make the best possible decisions about our security and the security of the world, and then to ensure that our department executes those decisions with its long accustomed competence and effectiveness. And while we deal with the challenges to our national security, I also want to make sure that I help our leadership grab hold of the wonderful opportunities that lie before this great country, and to make the world a better place for our children, and to create a safer world. My second commitment is to the men and women of the Department of Defense, whom I will lead, to reflect in everything I do and to honor the commitment and dedication that brought them into service, to protect their dignity, their safety, their well-being, to make decisions about sending them into harm's way with the greatest reflection and care. And third, I have a commitment to the future, to building a force for our future. That involves not only securing the resources we need, but making sure that we make the best use of the taxpayer's dollar. Make sure that we embrace change so that years from now and decades from now, we continue to be a place where America's finest want to serve, and a place that is a beacon to the rest of the world, and that a place that has the best in the way of technology and in the way of caring for our own people and people around the world. We're entering the fourth quarter of this president's tenure. These commitments that I'm making, I think, will help me help him and help the Vice President to ensure that those years are productive and that they leave our country's future in the best possible place, in the best possible hands. So thank you once again for this honor and privilege to lead and to serve alongside the members of the finest fighting force the world has ever known. Thank you.
Good job, everybody. Thanks for doing this. I mean it. Thank you for doing this. We need